Alrighty, good morning, everybody. So good to see you all to come and join us this morning. I know in Louisville it's quite rainy and gray, so thank you all for getting the motivation to join us this morning. And also, I know that it is spring break week, so a lot of folks, when I was sending out the invite and reminder, there was a lot of automatic replies saying I'm out of the office this week. So hope everybody who is not president is out enjoying, sunny skies somewhere on the beach somewhere, enjoying the relaxation and their family time. But thank you all for joining. So this week's training, this month's training is Youth Voice. And so we understand and we know, as youth workers, that youth voice is one of the most important components and one of the most important developmental tools that we have in youth development. It is where, youth have their autonomy, they have their sense of agency, to their own development. And it's what makes your program belong to the youth when they are able to have their input and you get their feedback, into how they want the program to be run and what they think it should be. So once again, we are in great hands with Ms. Siobhan this morning. And as always, as BLOCS culture, if we could just put your name in your organization within the chat, please. Your name and organization within the chat. And of course, later, towards the end of the training, we will have a survey, just to see how you all enjoyed this and what we can improve on. But we are excited to have you all here today, and I will not prolong our time. So I will hand it over to Ms. Siobhan. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I always have to ask myself, like, what's today? But today is Wednesday. So happy Wednesday, everyone. I am in the DC area and it is really gloomy here today. Antonio told me it is rainy and gloomy where you all are as well. So hopefully that means spring is like right around the corner, the actual spring weather, because it's still feeling real wintry here where I am. Spring poked its head out and then decided to go back and hibernate here. So I am hoping we have some spring weather on the way. I hope you all have some spring weather on the way as well. But I'm happy to be here today on this Wednesday talking about Youth Voice. Thank you for that introduction, Antonio. And you are absolutely right. Youth Voice is really, an integral part of our programming and what we do. And we want to make sure that we are highlighting that. So before I jump into everything and share my screen, I just want to say good morning. So I'm just looking in the chat. Good morning, Nancy from Lighthouse Academy at Newburgh. Morning. Good morning, Jaden from the Food Literacy Project. Good morning, Zion from Family and Children's Place. Good morning, Courtney from Harbor House of Louisville with a teen program. Good morning, Latanya from the Betterment Group / Black Minds Matter, Louisville. Awesome. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So happy that you all could join us on your spring break time. So I definitely appreciate that because I know how important spring break is. And I am with Antonio. Hopefully, you all get to enjoy some part of your spring break somewhere, doing something fun at least, right? So I am hoping that for you. Our kids are not on spring break here just yet. They go on spring break next week. So, and my child will be enjoying spring break right here at the house. That's what she will be doing with her spring break. So I understand if you are at home hanging out, sometimes a staycation is what you need, right? Awesome. So we are talking about Youth Voice here this morning. And before we really get into talking about Youth Voice and getting into what this presentation is all about, let's do a check-in. And then I'll introduce myself and so on and so forth. But let's check in. I always love to start with a quick check-in and see how everyone is feeling, see how you're doing, just kind of see what the energy is like in our virtual room here. So go ahead and type into the chat and let me know how are you feeling. And I've been saying how are you feeling today? But I'm reframing that and challenging myself to remember the reframe instead of asking, how are you doing today? Because today just really started. I am now asking, how are you doing in this moment? Right? Because to me, it's the moments that matter. And sometimes we have good moments, sometimes we have not so good moments, and that's okay because moments are fleeting. That means they pass. So, how are you feeling in this moment? I'm going to ask for you to type into the chat. Are you a one, a three, or a five this morning? You're a one if you're just like, I'm not having a good moment. You're a three if you're like, it is what it is. It's not neither good, neither bad. It's all right. That's a three. You're a five if you are having an amazing moment. You're really energized and you are rock and roll and ready to go. All right. So I see some numbers coming in, and feel free to choose anywhere in between. All right, let's see. I see a couple threes. Antonio is a five. Antonio, I feel like you are always a five. I love it. Uh, Courtney says, I'm feeling pretty blessed right now. Take it at a four. I love it. Zion's a five. Latonia's a five. All right, so we got some fours and fives in the building, a few threes. Listen, no one is at a one right now. We have no one moments. So I appreciate that. And even if you are having a one moment, there's space for you here as well. I'll be honest and tell you this. Last week was full of so many one moments for me. And I actually had some trainings and stuff that I had to do last week. And I always do check-ins and I always ask people like, how are you feeling? And I was checking in with a group that I see regularly. And I was very honest with them. I was just like, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Like, it's a one moment for me right now. Like I'm trying to get to a two. I couldn't even get to a two. My son was sick last week. I was operating off of like zero sleep. And also I wasn't feeling the best, and all the things. So I did not have I wasn't having good moments last week. But again, moments are fleeting and that has passed. And right now, today, I am having a good moment. So I'm going to give myself a five in this moment today. So I always say that to say, it's okay. If you're a one, a three, a five, a four, a two, that is all right. There is space for you. And the most important part is that you showed up this morning. So thank you for showing up. Good morning, Kenya. Welcome. Thanks for having us. Thanks for joining us. We're just doing our check-in right quick. Kenya, I'm asking everyone, how are they feeling? Are they a one, a three, or a five? So if you feel so inclined, you can feel free to pop your number right into the chat as well. So welcome everyone. I love it. Kenya says I'm a five this morning. Yes, I'm digging it. All right, so we are talking about youth voice this morning, and I'm going to keep my screen like this because it allows me to see my slides over here. So thank you for just rocking and rolling with me. Here is our agenda for the morning. We're going to do an opening activity. We'll do an icebreaker first, then we're going to go into an opening activity. We're going to talk about youth voice, right? Like what that method is. We're going to talk about what youth voice looks like in your program. And then we are going to do a reflection and we're going to close it out. I want to make a disclaimer here. I had to have an endoscopy 2 days ago, right? Like that's where they stick the camera down your throat. And so if I sound really like froggy or whatever, my throat is still a little sore from that. So as I'm talking, I'm feeling the roughness on my throat. I'm like, oh, I sound a little rough this morning. But it's just because I had this, they put a little camera down there. So my throat is still a little raw and recovering. So excuse me if I sound a little crazy or if I'm clearing my throat. So just wanted to give that disclaimer there. All right, here's our agenda here. Here are our objectives. When we talk about youth voice, participants will have the opportunity to explore the ways you all offer youth voice in your programs. Participants will gain experience with a few youth voice strategies, and then participants will understand the benefits of giving youth voice and how to offer meaningful opportunities for participation. And just a few housekeeping things here. you don't have any materials just yet. However, I'm going to send this presentation at the end. I will send this out to Antonio so he can share this with you all. Most importantly, do your self-care. If it's breakfast time and you didn't eat, please eat your breakfast. Take care of yourself. If you need to walk away, come back, join us when you can. But I do ask, most importantly, that you engage. This is for you. I always tell people you're going to get the most out of this according to what you put in, right? So feel free to engage. A couple different ways you can engage throughout our training here. You can always unmute yourself. I always tell people, like, I love doing informal trainings. Anything that I do is going to be an informal training. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time and share and talk. Because if we were in a physical space, you would just have the freedom to just start talking and sharing. And that's the type of environment I try to create, even in the virtual world as well. So always feel free to unmute yourself, share whatever you want to share. So that's one way you can engage. Another way that you can engage, you can type into the chat. Maybe you say, hey, I don't feel like actually talking, but I want my voice to be heard. You can type into the chat. I always try to have the chat pulled up so that I can see what it is that you are typing and sharing, and then I will share out to the group. And then also, you can choose a reactions button. I love the reactions buttons because I don't know, it's just fun. So at the bottom of your screen, it should be on the bottom, I think maybe like the right hand side of your screen, you should have an option for some reactions somewhere. Usually it's just like a thumbs up or a smiley face or something like that. But you can always feel free to throw those in there, throw some emojis into the chat, however you're feeling this morning. But you have different ways that you can engage. It doesn't always have to be in the form of spoken words. We recognize written words. We recognize, listen, if you got your camera on, if you're smiling, I recognize facial features as well, body language. I'll take it. So any way that you feel comfortable, engage as much as possible. That's going to make this time go by very quickly. All right. And then here is our pyramid for program quality. So this beautiful pyramid helps us understand how we can ensure we are implementing quality programming here. So right here at the bottom, you see a circle, youth voice and governance. That means that at the basis of everything that we do, at the foundation of what we do, we should have our youth input, right? Like we should have a youth council, a youth advisory board, something like that, where our young people have input in the governance of our program. Even before we, put the program together, we want to invite our youth to the table to get their input because it's for them. It's a program for them. So we want them to have a seat at the table. So that's where this comes in right here, youth voice in just the governance of programming. Then we see up here in peer interaction, youth voice, giving them the ability to be leaders, to be mentors in our programs. That can also ensure that we're providing a very quality experience for them, making sure that we're leading them towards some positive outcomes. And then also at the tippy top, youth engagement, right here we see circled make choices. We want to give them the ability to have voice and choice. So this is our pyramid of program quality. And when we think about youth voice, these are the areas where we know youth voice is really pertinent for programming. Type into the chat and let me know, yes or no, have you seen this pyramid before? Go ahead and type into the chat, yes or no. I always like to ask people, are they familiar with this pyramid? If you've ever taken one of these trainings, of course, you're going to be like, yes, I see this all the time. Some people might say, nope, I've never seen this. All right, so I see lots of yeses, great. I do see a no, okay. Awesome. Science says, of course, I have one in my office. All right, so a few no's, a couple yeses. And this is why I always like to ask because sometimes this is new to people. And if this is a new concept for you, this is basically saying when you have all of these things present in your program, that means you can have a quality program. It is also a really great snapshot of if you all utilize the program quality assessment tool, the PQA. These are all of the different areas we assess in programming to really kind of take a look at the quality and say, hey, yes, this is happening on a high level, or this is happening, but maybe not on a high level, or we say, no, this is not happening at all. So we look at safe environment, we look at supportive environment, we look at peer interaction, we look at youth engagement. And then these are all of the different, thank you, Antonio. He just popped that into the chat. These are all of the different subtopics within our domains here. So when we look at safe environment, we're talking about psychological safety, emotional safety, making sure it's a physically safe environment. Are there appropriate, like, is the furniture, is it appropriate for the age group? Is the space and the size of your room appropriate for what it is that you're doing in programming? Do you have healthy food and drinks available? Right? Is there a drinking fountain available for our young people? Do you have emergency preparedness procedures in place? Like, that's all a part of a safe environment, creating a safe environment. Supportive environment. Do you provide encouragement? Do you have skill building? Is there active engagement going on in programming? Are you doing great at reframing conflict? Do you have a good session flow? Basically, and what session flow is like, are you starting on time? Are you ending on time? Do you flow from one activity into the next? Do you create a welcoming atmosphere? All of those are part of supportive environment. Then we have peer interaction. Do your young people experience belonging? Do you allow opportunities for them to work in small groups? Do you give opportunities for them to be leaders, for them to mentor? Do you give them an opportunity to collaborate, to partner with you as an adult or with other adults in the room? At the tippy top, we have youth engagement. Do you give them an opportunity to plan? Do you give them an opportunity to reflect? Do they have the opportunity to make choices? And we're going to talk about choices today when we talk about youth voice. So that is just a quick overview, a snapshot about what this pyramid is all about. And so Antonio popped that into the chat for us. Thank you so much. But it is a great tool to have because, and I know I saw Zion say, hey, like I am, have this posted up in my office. I think that's awesome. Matter of fact, good reminder to me. I need to post one in my office as well. It's just a great visual tool to say, like, hey, are all of these things present in my programming? If all of these things are really present and happening in programming, boom, I know we got some quality programming going on there. So it's a tool, great tool to have. All right. So before I hop into everything, I didn't do this at the tippy top of the presentation, but I'm going to take the time to do it now. I just want to formally introduce myself. My name is Siobhan Dotson. I am going to be your facilitator today for our training talking about youth voice, youth voice and choice. And I have been doing trainings for really specifically on the training side of things for a few years now. Man, I think this is going into my third year of just doing trainings. But doing trainings and programming, I have been doing that for the last 7 to 8 years as a supervisor, as a program lead, as a director. I have been in the field of youth development. This is my 20th year in this field, and I am really, really excited about all of the work that I've seen happening in this field over the last 20 years. I started out my freshman year of college, and I was a tutor in an after school program. And I loved it so much. I was tutoring for my scholarship program that I was blessed enough to be able to go to college through. And I decided to get to college and work directly with them. And we were working with middle school students, helping them with homework. And honestly, I just loved it. And I have been in this field ever since, right? Like, I've done summer programs, I have done after school programs, I've been a volunteer, I've been a lead, I've been a director. I've done all the things, right? And so I'm really excited to see so much progress happening over the years. I love all of the legislation that's really pushing more funding into youth programming because it's so necessary. And then, we had the pandemic happen. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel like the pandemic really highlighted the absolute need for more programming, and really highlight the need for what it is that we do with our young people, because they have been going through the last few years, and we have seen so much learning loss because we had to go virtual. Some people go, in person, and you go hybrid, and we've seen a lot of learning loss happen. So we know that when our youth come to our programs, it's so imperative that not only are we helping them academically, but we're also helping them emotionally. We're helping them, psychologically. We're helping them cope through this. We check in with them. We make sure they're okay. We're teaching them tools. So I have loved seeing some of the different changes, the focuses. I love that we're focusing more on social emotional learning. I will actually be going to the Weichert Center next month to get trained, officially get trained in their SEL methods training. So I will be diving deep into social emotional learning when it comes to our methods trainings, and I'm really excited to bring that back to all of the people that I work with, because this work that we do is so important. So I'm excited to learn more about what you do. I am also excited to hear today what happens in your program. So again, this is meant to be conversational, so feel free to type into the chat, feel free to unmute yourselves, feel free to share. If you have best practices that you've like, hey, like this really works well in our program, we want to hear that. Share that. If you have a great tool, a great resource, share that as well. This is a great opportunity to exchange resources, to say, we actually are using, this model over here. Our young people love it. We've seen great progress. We want to hear about it. We love all those things. So that was just a little bit about me. Um, and hopefully, I know those of you have participated in the training before, you've heard the spiel time and time again, but hopefully you feel like you know me a little bit better today. I always like to tell people something personal about me. I'm a mom. I have two kids. I have an 18-year-old who is graduating from college and high school in the next month. Yeah, in the next, like in like the next 6 weeks. My daughter's graduating from college with her associate's degree in computer science. And then she will also be graduating with her high school diploma. So we're really excited. She selected her college she's gonna go to. Woo! So I'm excited about that. And she'll be pushing on. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're really proud of her, excited. So that is, child number one. Child number two, my son is 1.5. So he keeps me busy, keeps me on my toes. And he was literally right here, right before everyone hopped on for this training. He was helping me get prepared. And he was getting a kick out of looking at Antonio in the camera. He was over here cracking up, Antonio. He thought you could see him. So he's like waving his hands. I was like, hey, sweetie, the camera's not on. But those are my babies. So, parenthood it's a journey, right? Is it not? So that's just a little bit about me personally. Yes, I did. I know, Chad. I did start all over again. People say that all the time. What was I thinking, right? I have no clue. But it's interesting to see it from this vantage point. Awesome. And I'll tell you all this too, because again, I always like to be as transparent as possible. When it comes to these youth methods, man, and this youth voice, I have seen firsthand, like even in my own household, the importance of really honoring youth voice, right? Like I've seen the importance of it. I've seen what happens when you don't, I've seen what happens when you do. So I'm excited to have this discussion with you all today, and for us really to talk. This is going to be, conversational. I'm going to teach you the method. I'm going to show you the things, but I really want us to have conversation about what does this look like? What can this look like in programming? How do we continue to push this forward? All right. So before we get into our youth voice continuum, I am going to stop share really quickly. There we go. And I'm going to grab this link. We're going to do a quick icebreaker. Here it is here. Listen, I don't know about you all, but I personally have been loving this virtual world, virtual training, working from home, working in my pajamas. So there's a link there in the chat. It's a Slido link. If you can, go ahead and click that. It's going to take you over to the Slido. And I have a question here for you. If you can't access the Slido, you can also feel free to type your answer into the chat. So our question for today is, what's your favorite aspect about virtual meetings? What is your favorite aspect about virtual meetings? I'm going to share just so that you can see. So I share my screen here. All right. Some answers coming in. We'll go to, no, I don't want to go to that mode. All right, we'll just leave it here. All right. So go ahead and again, if you can't access the Slido, go ahead and feel free to type it into the chat. Oh, there it is right there. Okay, there we go. As that is loading. So I saw some answers coming in there. Here we go. What's your favorite aspect about virtual meetings? So let me see. And I have some answers myself too. Yes. So someone says convenience. Facts. I feel the same way. All right, being able to participate in meetings, trainings with people from all over the US. I agree. I have enjoyed that as well. Someone says time saving, right? No travel time spent. That is also facts. King says it gives me the ability to be comfortable in my own home. Absolutely. Yeah, Latanya says no traffic and networking. Absolutely, you all. I totally feel all of the things, right? And I feel like I'm gonna miss this aspect of it whenever that's going to be, when we really start to do more going back in person. I feel like we're slowly getting back into more in-person stuff, but I have enjoyed being able to connect with people from all over the United States. I feel like these virtual trainings, virtual meetings has opened up, I feel like it's opened up the world, put the world at our fingertips just a little bit more. I have been in trainings where it's like people from London. I've had people from Africa in trainings, and it's, of course, you always have to take into account the time change, but that's been pretty cool. Where I'm like, oh yeah, it's 9 o'clock here, and they're like, oh no, it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. So that's always fun. It's always fun. All right, someone says connecting with other people that are across states. Although virtual meetings, I am still working in the building. Oh yeah, and I know, yes, some people have started going back into the office, still working virtually, but working virtually from your office. All right. Yeah, the no traffic, being able to network. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like, I totally love being able to do these trainings in my pajamas, right? Like, I will put a nice shirt on, but in full transparency, I always have pajama bottoms on. Like, always have pajama bottoms on. And I always have my slippers on. That is my jam right there. Not even gonna lie to you. So I feel like I'm gonna miss, an aspect of that. But I am gonna be doing a training in person in a few weeks, and I said I want to bring an aspect of that fun. So I'm gonna challenge people. Like, hey, feel free to show up to this training dressed like how you would if this was a virtual training. So I plan on showing up with my pajama bottoms on. So I'm excited about that, because I think there's something to be said about just having a different level of comfort sometimes. I've asked this question before to another group, and there were lots of like, yes, I love it, but a lot of people were transparent and said, no, like, I've gotten too comfortable and I don't feel like I've been as productive because I'm doing this in my bed, and then I want to take a nap, and then I'm too comfortable. So it's so interesting to see how people approach this, and how people feel about it. Kenya says, I used to, but I held myself accountable to getting out of the PJs. Listen, I do. I definitely still wear my PJs. I wear my pajama bottoms. I will totally like get fully dressed. I will just put comfortable pajama bottoms on and put my slippers on, because, it definitely adds more comfort for me. But I'm dressed from like the waist up. A nice shirt on, nice sweater or something. But
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I know. Listen, like my sister, My sister was just like, she still gets fully dressed. Like she has on jeans or, you know what I'm saying? Like dress pants and dress shoes. And she was just like, no, I have to get up and get fully dressed. I'm like, sis, you do you, but I have to have on some comfortable pajama bottoms. It makes me feel my best. So I love it. Well, thank you all for participating in our Slido about, the best aspect. I'm going to stop share there. The best aspect of virtual training. It's always fun to know how people feel, what people think, what your experience has been like as well. So it's interesting to really just kind of to see that. I want you to type into the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. What do you miss about in-person trainings or in-person experiences? What do you miss about it? Unmute yourself or type it into the chat. What do you miss about the in-person experience? I have lots of thoughts on that too, but I'm curious to see yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay. I miss just, even though my platform allows me to see and interact with the kids, I miss the proximity, I guess. A lot of what I do, I'm a lot more effective with some of my students because I deal with some behavior issues. It's a lot more effective when they're closer to me in person because I see my second graders and first graders turning flips on the bed and stuff, their cameras on. And I can't really, I can say, hey, come over here, but it's a lot more effective when they're closer to me in terms of those that I have to be a lot more like highly structured and authoritative with. So I definitely miss that.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I bet like working with the elementary age, man, like I know y'all see all these kids doing all type of stuff on these cameras, boy, oh boy. But that's an interesting, I love that you said like just being in close proximity to them. That's beautiful because that means that you know the value of that closeness, for them being able to kind of provide that for them. So thank you so much for sharing. What about everyone else? What do you miss about the in-person experience? You can unmute yourself or you can type it into the chat.
Well, I would say what I miss about the in-person experience, because I'm more visual in my learning style. So I have to see it, although it's good doing it here, but it's something about socializing. It's the socialization piece for that. Because when I'm excited about something that I'm learning or something that I have put into effect, I like to, if it's just like small conversations with my neighbor or someone in my team or my cohort, I like to be like, well, I tried that and this was the result and but and here it's awesome too, because I get the network. I'm meeting a lot of people that I don't know. And it gives me the opportunity but it's still different because we can do this back and forth all day long. But if we're not sharing contact information and spending just small amounts of time in knowing each other's personality, I guess.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kenya. Just that socialization aspect of it. I see Courtney typed into the chat. Yep, definitely socializing. It is an important part. And I agree with you. It's such a valuable part of the experience when you're learning something new, to know that you're also learning this new thing with other people who are learning this new thing, and you get to lean over and share anecdotes and just exchange the energy in that space. So thank you for sharing that. I love the virtual aspect of it because it's the convenience, like you all said, but I totally miss the energy of people. I always tell people I am a hoot in person. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, experience me fully in person is my preference because I love experiencing people fully in person. So I miss that as well. I miss being in physical spaces and feeling people's energy and just, um, just getting to know people differently. And I also miss the activities. Doing a lot of these trainings virtually, we can't do a lot of the activities that we usually do in person. It's a lot of movement, it's a lot of it's very high energy. And so it's different when you're virtual and you're trying to recreate that atmosphere. So I do miss some of that energy. And again, like I've slowly been doing some in-person stuff. Still, most of what I do is virtual. But anytime I have an opportunity to experience people in real life or to have people experience me in real life, I really value that and I cherish it. So I am excited about things slowly opening back up and more opportunities for, folks to get back and connect and to network and to, just to be around each other. So we will see. Hopefully, hopefully good old Corona go about her business, right? And go do whatever she got to do and move on. Because I know we are, so many people are ready to get back to some semblance of normalcy. I know our young people are ready to get back to some semblance of normalcy as well. So thank you all for sharing that with me. All right, so we're gonna get into talking about youth voice and this youth voice continuum. I'm gonna stop share again because I'm going to put a link into the chat. And for this link into the chat, I want you all to, let me grab this link. I want you all to just, answer these questions and think about your own experience. When you were young or when you were going through a program or going through class or anything like that. So there's a link right there in the chat. It's going to take you to a Google form. I'll be able to see your responses coming up. So I want you to fill that out and really relate this to your own experience. And I'm going to share my screen again just so that you can see from a different end. There we go. So this is what we're looking at here. It's called the Youth Voice Continuum. I want you to think about, again, your experience as a youth, and you're just going to answer true or false. So the first thing here, most of the activities that I participated in were adult directed. When you were a young person, true or false? Most of the things that you participated in were adult directed, true or false? The second one there, I was given the opportunity to contribute to decision making in my school or youth program, true or false? True or false? Given the opportunity to contribute to decision making in your school or your youth program. True or false? The next one here, I was responsible for planning an event such as a dance or fundraiser. True or false? I was responsible for planning an event such as a dance or fundraiser. True or false? I was given the opportunity to decide what my school or youth program offered. True or false? I was given the opportunity to decide what my school or youth program offered. True or false? I participated in a class or training on how to be a youth leader. True or false? I participated in a class or training on how to be a youth leader. True or false? I felt manipulated or tokenized as a youth in my school or youth program. True or false? I felt manipulated or tokenized as a youth in my school or program. True or false?
Okay, so I had clicked on the survey
Mhm.
and it disappeared because you shared your screen. So I'm struggling with trying to answer the questions. But I know the answer in the chat, but I'm trying to figure my screen is like jumping everywhere. So
I know when I go to share screen and it goes full, it totally like knocks off whatever you're doing. I just reshared the link. Again, you should be able to minimize, uh, take me off of full screen so that you can pop that up. And our last question here, I felt that my ideas were ignored just because I was young. True or false? I felt that my ideas were ignored just because I was young. True or false? Alrighty. And I'm gonna stop share on that screen because I'm gonna pull up. There we go. And so here we are. Look at some responses. All right, so for the first one, most of the activities that I participated in were adult directed. Most people said that's true. Most people just like, yep, like that's true. Most things that I participated in were led by an adult. One person said that's false. So it seems like the majority of people have experienced more, adult-led, adult-centered activities than youth-led. All right, for the second question, I was given the opportunity to contribute to decision making in my school or youth program. Most people said that was, nope, I did not. That was false. This is so interesting to see these results. One person said that was true. I was responsible for planning an event such as a dance or fundraiser. We had 4 people say nope. 2 people said I participated in that. I had that opportunity. I was given the opportunity to decide what my school or youth program offered. Most people said nope. We had 1 person say I did. I participated in a class or training on how to be a youth leader. Most people said nope. Only 1 person said I did. I felt manipulated or tokenized as a youth in my school or youth program. 2 people said that is true. Most people said no. I felt that my ideas were ignored just because I was young. We have, I'm sorry, you all, hold on. Whoop. My daughter's school just sent out an emergency alert, and my daughter just texted me and says she thinks there's a school shooting at her school.
what school she go to?
We're in the DC area. She's in Clarksburg High School, but she goes to the college. She's not generally at her school. Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She's not at her school. I just had to check to make sure she wasn't at her school. She's at the college. Okay. I apologize. That is crazy. This is the world that we live in, y'all. Okay, she is safe. Thank you for that. She is safe. Okay, back to our training. I know, yes, Jaden, that is a relief. All right. So when we said that I felt my ideas were ignored just because I was young, 4 people said, no, I don't feel that way. We did have 3 people say, I did feel, I felt that way. So we're talking about this youth voice, this idea of, go back to our PowerPoint presentation of where we provide youth voice. So I want you to think about your programs. I want you to think about your programs, and I want you to think about those questions in relation to how you manage programs, right? So do you typically find that you're providing your young people with opportunities to plan, plan some type of event, plan a special event? Are you all providing opportunities for your young people to have their voice heard, right? Are you all providing opportunities for your young people to learn how to be leaders, right? Most people, when we looked at that survey, they were just like, no, no one ever asked me how I felt. No, I didn't have an opportunity to, give any feedback. No, I didn't have an opportunity to be a leader. So are you providing those opportunities for young people in your program? And we're going to talk about, youth voice and how to make sure that we are really highlighting that. Kenya says, yes, to have collaboration among one another. Great. Awesome. And you all go ahead, feel free. You can unmute yourself or you can type into the chat. What are some examples of opportunities you provide your youth to have their voice heard? What are some examples of that? How does that look in some of your programs?
God, I feel like I'm hogging the mic. Can y'all hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Maintenance is in here doing some stuff. So if it gets too loud, please let me know. So I'm so excited about this question because I actually created a STEAM program. So to raise funds for my organization, I decided to take my teacher escrow, 3 years of it, and build an ice cream truck. It was something that my students and I talked about, being in the West End of Louisville, how we don't have ice cream parlors. The shave ice trucks don't come into our neighborhood. And majority of the people, I'd say 85 to 90%, never heard of water ice. So I built this truck that served, like basically a mobile dairy deal that serves ice cream, shave ice, water ice. That was, when I built it, it was just to raise funds. Very hard to raise funds here. And I wasn't getting any grant money, any grants or anything like that at the time. So what I decided to do was I decided to let my students come on the truck and work it with me. I also they had input on what I was going to sell, the arrangement of the truck. I basically did a business plan where they basically did it with me because I listened to the fact that they, we didn't, why do other neighborhoods have this stuff and we don't? Why won't this shave ice truck come to our area or whatnot? So they had input in that, but more than that, I have kids who are bakers. They have their own little bakery things going on. So what I decided to do was they make my cookies for my ice cream sandwiches, and they do the cakes for my ice cream cake parfaits. Then I took it a step further and said, okay, since I've learned working on this truck for 2 years and realized everything about it is science, technology, engineering, math, and they're crafty. So that brought the arts into it. And I developed a whole program called Scoops and Scholars, which, I have a trailer built and it's going to be completely student led. I'm opening a math academy. In the front part of my math academy, when you first walk in, it's an ice cream shop, a small ice cream shop that is a classroom. It's going to be completely run by students, from the books to, I got somebody double checking on the books, but I got a girl that's very organized and she does appointments for her sister's bakery. So I said, okay, she's going to do that. But we haven't implemented it yet. Break the truck out. The public is gonna see it at an event I helped put together with Kentucky Dairy Festival on April 16th. So if you're in the Louisville, Kentucky area, April 16th, Norton Healthcare Track and Field, come and enjoy. It's a black food truck, especially a black child wagon that I spearheaded, and my students' Scoops and Scholars program is going to be there.
Wow. Latanya, thank you so much for sharing that. That is amazing. I love that idea. And that's a really great example of incorporating youth voice on every level, right? I love that you said, I thought about this idea, right? And in my planning phase, I invited them to the table to really help me think about, how we're going to do this, to involve them in the planning process, because like you said, like it's for them. You saw a need. You said, here, I can help, fill this need, but I want them to be in on this as well. And you brought them to the table, and that is amazing. And not only that, all of the different aspects of running this business, you're just like, all right, let me lean on their strengths, their talents. I think that is beautiful. I see some things in the chat. People are saying they love this idea. It's so cool. Nancy says, definitely can't wait to hear how it goes when you open. Yes, keep us updated. I'd love to hear an update on how your April 16th event went. That's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really beautiful. And first of all, kudos to you for saying I took, 3 years of my teacher escrow.
That was the only way. I tried, I begged the community. I worked, I was tutoring as well. So I was tutoring and saving my money for that. But yeah, it was rough. I struggled, but I got through it, and it's paying off.
I was about to say, yeah, but what a beautiful payoff, right? And I know there are lots of grant funds out there that can take you to the next level with this. So that is amazing. And we look forward to hearing how well this plays out for the young people. Such a beautiful opportunity. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Nancy says, Nancy has a youth council and a board. Love it. Allowing students to decide the theme for summer programs. All right. Shakria says, we promote youth voice when we pick out field trips and daily free time activities. Nancy says the students came up with a theme for the summer. We are family. Oh, that's fun. Nancy also says we also allow students to come up with their clubs and allow them to design their own rules. Yes. So these are great examples of simple ways to incorporate youth voice into your programming. And the thing is, honestly, when we think about it, your entire program should be youth led in a sense, right? Like, of course, we're the staff. We have to, kind of teach the things or lead the things in a certain sense. However, the ideas our young people should have input on, right? When you're thinking about who you're hiring, do you all allow your young people to give input on that as well? For those of you who have advisory boards or councils, do they also have input into the hiring process, right? I know one job we worked for, we had our youth council president, right, sit in on final interviews to say like, hey, first of all, we wanted to expose them to what that process looked like, but also for them to have some input in as to who was working in our facility. Because at the end of the day, the young people had to deal with that person more so than the other adults in the building. So your program should have opportunities for youth to give their voice, for them to do input. And I love how Latanya said she really leaned on the skills and the talents of the young people and said, how can I incorporate this into, what we're doing, what we're building? So interest surveys, do you all, do interest surveys for your youth? Do you all do skills assessments with your young people? Are you all aware at what your young people are good at? Do you know what they love to do? Do you know what they hate doing, right? Like, have you assessed and gotten that information about what they want to see in programming? And if you haven't, it's okay. I would just say, in the future, try to make it a priority to do an interest survey or really kind of ask them, what do you love about this program? What do you hate about this program? What do you want to see differently? What would you like to contribute? What are you great at? Because I have found when asking people like, what's a skill set? What's a talent? What would you consider yourself an expert in? You'd be surprised what some people come up, even our young people. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I had a lot of kids, talk about social media is a thing now, right? So they were really good at like TikToks, right? The TikToks or the Instagram. So you know what? Guess what? They are now our social media marketing managers, right? And we're talking about, doing something. Hey, all right, well, it's your job to come up with how we can promote this on Instagram. How can we promote this on social? Like, how can we make it fun? So giving them those type of responsibilities, because that's going to give them buy-in. And it's also going to make them feel like they have that sense of belonging. So I love that you all are saying, hey, we are asking them what they want to do, what they're thinking about, how they want this to go. Kenya says, I still don't even know how to fully work Instagram. Here's the thing, me either. Let the kids do it because they know all the things, right? Like my daughter had to school me on hashtags. I was just like, I don't know. I don't even know how hashtags work, ma'am. And she did. She was just like, oh no, you got to go with the trending things. And like she schooled me on the trending sounds and, all of those, how to choose your hashtags. And she taught me geotag. And I'm like, I don't know none of this, but she did. Like these kids know this stuff. They know all the TikTok dances. They know how to work all these things. I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue. But that makes it fun for them because it's like, well, you have a skill set I don't have. How can we collaborate and work together on this?
My 2-year-old grandson knows how to do that. Knows how to do TikTok. He talks about TikTok and the Duchess, let's do TikTok, and me and Mama do TikTok. So yeah. I know I have to do better.
I don't know this stuff either. I don't.
A 2-year-old has outdone me.
Yes,
so
because these kids love it, right? It's because it's the new thing. Everybody's, and I love that you said your 2-year-old, grandson loved it. Here's the thing, like these little kids know how to do this stuff. So even if you're working with like preschoolers or, you know what I'm saying, like first graders or whatever, there is a way to get them involved in these things because like my son who's 1.5, like he knows how to use my phone, right? Like he was FaceTiming and literally like set it up and was talking
my
on
grandson,
the
he puts it on the floor. He literally takes the phone, set it on the floor, and he stands in front of the mirror.
So they know. Right. Like they know these things. So we can use that to our advantage to get them excited about something. And I think that kind of goes into, what we're going to talk about next, this idea of adultism. A lot of the times we think, oh, you're too young to actually know how to do any of that correctly. You're too young to know how to do it the right way. That's adultism. So we're going to, just chat a little bit about adultism. Adultism is basically a bias against youth. It's an assumption that because we're adults, we know how to do it better than our young people, right? Because listen, you're young, I'm the adult. Let me go ahead and do it because I'm gonna do it the right way anyways. That's adultism. And adultism shows up oftentimes in how we, talk to our youth, how we work with our youth in programming. We are always taking things and doing it our way. When it's like, honestly, this program ain't for you. This program is for the young people. So we need to be creating a program that they want to come to. So I want to ask you all, and feel free, this is no judgment, but I am asking just because I'm curious, how many of you all in your program that you know of, how many of your programs integrated youth and youth's opinions or youth voice in the creation of programming? Go ahead and type that into the chat. How many of your programs integrated youth voice into the creation of your programs, into the curriculum of your program, into the design of programming? Awesome. Kenya said, Mine does. And this is a no judgment. I'm just curious to know, because I know in the work that I've done, I've had to check myself, because I've been very much like, I'm about to plan summer programming. This is what we're going to do for summer. We're going to have this 10-week summer camp. It's going to be this, that, and the other. And I never asked those kids what they wanted to do. I never asked them. I created a whole 10-week summer program because in my head, it was like, it's so much easier for me to just go ahead, for me to do it, and they just gonna participate in it. And I'm not saying that they didn't enjoy some of the activities. They love going to Six Flags and they love going to King's Dominion and all of these things, but I never gave them a seat at the table. Jaden says, our program for young peoples ages 16 to 21, but our program for 3rd through 5th grade hasn't. See, and there it is, right? Well, sometimes when it's the older adults, the older young people, we might say, all right, yes, we want to know what you want to do. But do we often give our elementary school students that same, respect? Do we give them that same seat at the table? Because sometimes we assume a 3rd grader, you're not gonna take this seriously, or you in the 2nd grade, you don't know what you're talking about, right? That's adultism. Antonio writes, in the short term, adultism pays off, right? Because you're just like, I got to get this done. I need to do it. I need to get it done just for the sake of. But he says, not in the long term. Adultism isn't great for program longevity and relevance. It's not. And it's not great for youth participation. If we're creating a program simply highlighting the things that we love, youth are not going to be excited about it. And then here's what I know from experience. Then we're going to get mad. We're going to get attitude because ain't nobody participate. We're going to be upset because attendance is down, right? We're like, well, we said we were going to have 85% average daily attendance. And right now we're only seeing like 50% of students coming. Well, that's probably because you're not doing anything that they are interested in. And I know sometimes people get stuck and say, well, we have a tutoring program. How are we supposed to make tutoring fun? I ask the kids, right? Ask your young people how to make tutoring fun. Ask them what they're interested in. There's so many different ways that we can make our programming fun and engaging and relevant to what our young people are interested in. That doesn't mean we have to change, in essence, what we're doing, but we want them to have a seat at the table, because we often see this adultism, popping up. Like when I go and I observe program, I'm also a third-party evaluator, and I assess program quality. And sometimes I'll go into classrooms, and I'll hear it and I'll see it, where you all ever heard the saying, right? Like children should be seen and not heard. It's like I've seen that play out in programming, because every time someone's trying to say something, they're shh, no talking, shh, we got to be quiet. And it's just like,
not in programming. That's the whole purpose of it. Like, wow, okay, I'm gonna just be quiet.
Exactly. It's
I
just
think it goes a little deeper than that, though, because you have to take into account, cultural practices, because in a lot of cultures, it is like, kids need to stay in stay in a child's place, and they are to be quiet while the adults are teaching, or while the adults are at the head of the program space. And like even in church sometimes too, it's like, it's about the adults, and you sit back and you listen. And so if you're used to doing that culturally outside of program, and then that kind of carries over into the program space. And so I guess it kind of, opens up the door to having to separate, programming and also like cultural practices as well. I don't know what you all think about that, but that's kind of
I totally understand that, right? But in a environment, that type of setting, you want to offer engagement and interaction. I guess you would have to set the rules. Me personally, set rules of respect, and have a order, a structure, because we need to have the feedback from the youth. But I think that's just kind of awful in that setting, in this type of setting, because we need to educate ourselves on what's going on. because the generations have changed so much, just as far as, by the way, I got a little trigger. Of course we all did, but it really affects me in a different way about your daughter texting. Because look at what's going on. We're in a different time and generation now. Like, hearing what's really how they think, cognitively, and how they making decisions, and I guess the pressures that they're under. I fully want to sit back and be the student and listen to them. That's just me. But I totally agree, Antonio. I do. But the structure for me.
Thank you all for sharing that. And I think, Antonio, you're right about cultural, right? Like it's more deep seated. And the thing is, though, I will say this journey of youth development, even in the professional sense, has led me to dig deeper into my own beliefs, even as a parent. Because if I'm being honest, there is no way for me to separate how I feel personally from how I show up professionally, right? I can't say I believe in youth voice and programming, but really don't show that I believe in it in my own house, right? Like I cannot say I disagree that a child should be seen and not heard. Like I can't say that I disagree with that in programming if that's how I believe, if that's what I believe in my personal. Like we like to believe that we can separate the two, right? Because it's like, well, them ain't my kids, them your kids. At the end of the day, unconsciously, those things will always show up. So, and I personally have recognized that. So when I think about, these methods and youth voice particularly, that's why I highlighted at the beginning of this, like I've had to implement this stuff in my house. I've had to switch my own personal beliefs, even in my parenting journey, because it is very hard to feel like, well, I don't believe it professionally. But then to come home and be like, girl, sit down, be quiet, don't say, it was a complex for me. And so I felt like as much as I try to separate, of course, these concepts and these beliefs will always show up in my professional life. But I started to dig deeper into this idea of youth voice and into this idea of adultism. And I started really looking into, and I'm actually working on developing a training for this. And it's called more like not building, but more, you know what I'm saying? Like raising conscious young people, right? So there's this term, it's called conscious parenting. Some people call it gentle parenting. I love the term conscious parenting. And I think we need to have conscious programming, because here's what happens. When our young people are in kindergarten, when they're in elementary school, right? We are telling them that you should be seen and not heard. You need to follow the rules. You need to do this, sit down, do this, don't do this. But then we expect them to get into high school and be vocal, right? Like someone just said, well, we do it for our 16 through 21-year-olds, but we don't do it for our 3 through 5. Well, then when are we ever supposed to teach the 3rd through 5th graders, right? But it's like all of a sudden, magically, when they become adults or when they become young adults, we expect them to have all of the tools we never taught them. And that's unfair. So when we talk about advocacy, I love to see young people advocating for themselves. And I think about how oftentimes we shut down advocacy in young people at a very young age because we start labeling them as, you talk too much, you got a smart mouth, right? It's like we shut them down. You're talking out of turn. You need to sit down. You need to listen to what I'm saying. Well, no, listen to what they're saying. Because when we shut that down in them, we don't teach them to utilize that as a skill set. We teach them to silence them. And that's where the adultism comes into play, right? Because we're like, well, no, I know what's best. And it's just like, honestly, can I say I really, like even my son, he's 1.5. I don't know what's best for my 1.5-year-old knows I don't know what he needs all the time. So even in that, at that stage, I have to learn to listen to him. Kids have tantrums. And you know what they say, anytime a child is having a tantrum, it's because they're trying to communicate something to us. Communication happens in different ways. So I want you all to think about your programming and even think about all those behavioral issues that come up. That's a child trying to communicate something. It's our job to figure out like what the need is. But when we think about this idea of adultism and youth voice, and Antonio, thank you for bringing that up of like the juxtaposition of our cultural beliefs, or, how we believe this personally, how it plays into our professional, our professional life, because there is crossover. So for me, I've had to assess and reframe some of my own personal beliefs to be like, man, like I really have not been living and breathing this work in my personal life, which makes me not really live and breathe it so much in my professional life, because I've had those moments where, as an observer, as an evaluator, you're looking like you see someone be like, you better get somewhere and sit down. And sometimes I'd be like, yeah, I know that's right. Right. I know that's right. You sure better get somewhere and sit down. But it's just like, no, maybe that's not what they need. Right. Like if they can't sit in their seat, if they can't be sit, if they want to blurt and talk out, like how do we teach them how to use that as a skill, right? Like how do we give them a tool for that? So that's the thing I love about when we talk about youth voice. It's literally about giving our young people the tools to be able to speak up for themselves. When we silence our young people, even in programming from all these different aspects, they're going to grow up to be adults who are silenced. Even for us, how many times have we felt silence in our jobs? And we kind of take it. We shrink ourselves.
Yeah, and this is something that I see, and I think LaTonya can speak more on this. LaTonya, like when you think about the classroom setting,
I couldn't wait to talk.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Antonio, but you are reading my mind. Just listening, there's a few things that come into play here. And I'm guilty of just being one way. I'm a disciplinarian by nature. So that's just my demeanor, whether I'm at school or whether I'm in my programming or whether I'm in my home. I don't have children of my own, but I have nieces and nephews and things like that. And I'm just a disciplinarian. One of the things that I've had to do with my middle and high school students is I've had to teach them how to advocate for themselves, but I've had to teach them the proper way to advocate, because I'd like to challenge whoever's not a teacher in this space right now. I challenge you to go to it's open, go to a school and volunteer. Just go in a middle school and just volunteer. It could be elementary. Go in and volunteer and see what happens when you allow students to voice. And they don't know how. They're not being taught at home because the parents don't know how to advocate properly. I mean, I don't know. But it's like I'm listening and everything I'm saying, but it's in a school setting, it's like a double-edged sword, because you have to be quiet. That's the only way you're gonna learn. If you let little Johnny vent, Timmy's gonna vent. If you let Timmy vent, Samantha's gonna vent, and everybody's venting all at the same time. So although the ideology of all of this, it sounds wonderful and amazing and what we have to do, but y'all gotta understand that they come to 6.5 hours in the day, they're being told level 1, level 0. They're being told when they're asking questions. I've already said that. So kids they're trying to voice and they're trying to tell adults what they're needing, and they're being shut down in so many different ways. Like, it's just so tricky. They're in a whole system that shuts them down. The whole system is designed to do that. And then what happens when they voice what they want, or they voice their concerns? A referral, a detention, ISAP. You see, so I think it's real tricky. We have to teach our parents how to teach the kids at home how to advocate for themselves, but it has to be done in a way that is conducive to the system. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know. It's like I'm listening, and it's like a double-edged sword. It's like a catch-22 in a school setting, I'm saying. So you got to understand that they're learning this stuff in school. When they come into a structured program, they're in the mentality of school. That's one of the reasons why I don't want my setup to be nothing like a school. Like, don't put no desk in here, put tables. I want chairs they can sit in and read, go over in the corner. I want a space where if they don't want to be around everybody else, they can go and be comfortable in their space. That was very important to how my space is being set up for my programming. I don't want it to be nothing at all like school, because in school they're shut down, and with me they're allowed to speak. I have to teach them that, and I'm talking about 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 12th graders. So it's all true, but we're gonna have a conversation with our parents, which I'm blessed to be able to do that. My parents are very active in my programming, but if they're never taught how to do it, we can show them in the after school program. They go to school and they're gonna get in trouble for it. You see what I'm saying?
I think and thank you so much for that input and that insight. And I always tell people there are ways to do things even within the construct, right? Now, I will be completely 100% honest with you. I literally quit my teaching program halfway through because I was just like, I can't do this. I was just like, I can't be in these classrooms, boo. And it was simply because me and the system, I knew we weren't gonna get along. I just knew somebody was gonna fire me. Because I agree with you. I don't think that I think our educational system is completely outdated. I think that this pandemic has completely highlighted how outdated our educational system is, and I think it needs a complete overhaul. But that is neither here nor there. What I do think, though, within those structured environments, it's imperative for us to teach our young people, just like you said, teach them, give them a tool to use that is within the structured setting, right? So when we're talking about giving students a voice and allowing them an opportunity to have their voice heard, I think it's within us to say, like, I'm going to encourage that. But like you said, here's what that has to look like in this environment. If we have to put a bubble in our mouths because, this is the time for us to practice silence, that doesn't mean there's not a space and a time for me to hear you. So I had an example of a teacher. I did this one time. This was pre-pandemic, right? I had a teacher who said what they do is they have a box. Now, this is, of course, this works for students who can write, but they have a box where if students want to share something with this teacher, they write their name and they put it in a box. And the teacher has a designated time where they circle back to the student to say, okay, now you have 7 minutes of my time or 5 minutes of my time dedicated to whatever it is you wanted to share with me, right? So this teacher created the structure for it to say, I still want to encourage you to have a voice. I don't want to completely shut you down, but absolutely, there's a time and a place for everything. But I want to give you the opportunity to share at the right time. And I know
if they would do that, that would be wonderful and amazing. But we're in a time now. And let me just say this, I thought I was going to be fired. I've been in this thing 17 years, and I probably should have been fired the first year. But they keep me around because I'm effective with very difficult kids that no one wants to deal with. But that's one of the problems with what you just said is there are some teachers that will go that extra mile, but there are some teachers, they just want to go to work, come home, tend to their kids, and do it all over again the next day. There's no emotion. There's no care. They don't live around the kids. They don't deal with the same issues. And they just want to get in and get out. I work with teachers like that. I've always worked with teachers like that. One of the things that I pride myself on is that my students, most of the students where I live, where I go to school, they go to my school, and I teach at no middle school. They see me. They see me everywhere. It makes me, I always say, it's like it makes me more human. So they have a tendency to have more respect for me because they see me more. I work with a lot of people who they don't care. They're not going to provide that time. So I highly respect those teachers who go that extra mile, who will do those things and not have to require extra money, for doing what they know they need to do. But there's simply a lot of them. They, as we say, they beat the kids home. They beat the kids home. The kids leave at 2:20. We don't get off till 2:35, and we beating the kids home.
Yeah, Absolutely. And you're right. And I mean, it's not even just in the school setting. We see that in the after school programming as well, too, right? We have some people who show up, get the check, and go home. Um, and that's what it is, because sometimes we're hiring for bodies, because we're hiring the people who can fill the space, not the people who are gonna do the best job. And so I think we see that in every aspect of youth development, whether it's in education, whether it's in any out of school time programming. And it's going to continue to happen, because that's the world that we live in. And this training is seriously all about, like, how can we enhance our youth voice? So there are always going to be ways where we can try to sneak it in where we can. And I think I tell people, one thing that helps me sleep at night, I can't control what nobody mama do. I can't control what this principal do. I can't control what the other teachers do. But when I'm there, boy, am I going to give it what I got to give it. You know what I'm saying? And know that if they didn't learn it anywhere else, at least for these 30 minutes they was with me, or these 2 hours that they were with me, they got it with me. You know what I'm saying? And that's, for me though, that's how I sleep at night, because it's our young people are needing so much. And I feel like a lot of the systems and beliefs that some people have, they're just very outdated. They're not meant for this new generation of kids that I personally feel like are really coming up. And so we're gonna have to be willing to do some new things, to try some new things, and to give it some new energy. And I respect you for what you do and the input and the insight that you give to it, Latanya, so much, because I can hear the passion for what it is that you do, and the fight that you fight, that I'm sure seems like it is a lonely battle, right?
Yes, ma'am. I want to share this because I think this is important. It's going to be a testament to what you just said. I just came off of a 3.5 month leave. And the reason I did that, the reason I went on leave is because, so I work with, like I said, behavior. I work with ECE kids, but majority of my students are emotional behavior disorder. They're your most volatile, most violent, all of that. So that's who I work with. At my school, I used to have a self-contained classroom. So, and our kids come from the highest poverty area, highest crime, highest HIV/AIDS, highest, just drug use. And I went to work this incoming school year, went to work, and they had gotten rid of my self-contained. So for those who don't know what self-contained is, it's where you take, I was only legally allowed 8 students. So I had 8 of the most, like I said, volatile students, the most dangerous students, 8 of the most dangerous students in the building in my room. That gave me an opportunity to really work with that group.
I think we lost you. Uh-oh. I think we lost her. Is it just me? Anybody else? Can anyone else hear her?
It's my principals.
Oh, we lost you for
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think it's my connection because they're working. I was trying to explain to my principals how they were creating a message to these kids, because they mix those kids who like to fight and very violent and physical with kids who are in wheelchairs. They put them all in the same classroom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you went out again. Uh-oh. I think she went out.
About the,
there you go.
I had to take a leave because they weren't taking into consideration what they were creating and putting all these kids together who they know shouldn't have been together like that.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a battle and fighting it alone, and I'm only one of 3 Black teachers in the building anyway, so it's like it's a hard crusade.
Yeah.
It's a hard crusade. And sometimes I do feel like I'm fighting it alone, but I had to take a step back and realize, you know what? This is a whole system I'm fighting. It ain't just my school. I had to realize it was a whole system. So I just came off of a 3.5 month leave behind this whole what we're talking about right now. Basically adultism.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we are here, you know, supporting you as best as we, you know, as best as we can. So I'm glad that you said, let me take a step back though. Right. Let me take a step back, get myself together before I can hop back into it. So kudos to you for some self-care, because it's important for us to take a step. And you're right. It's a whole system, right? It's absolutely a whole outdated, you know, archaic patriarchal system that you are fighting against. So I love how you are doing what it is that you can. Thank you so much. And so we're going to highlight just this method really quickly about youth voice, what that method looks like, in, you know, in programming to make sure it's there. So the first thing, and this is called the voice ladder, you want to make sure that you have opportunities. You're creating opportunities for youth voice to happen. So right here at the bottom of the ladder, that's no voice. That means that we're not giving our young people any voice. And then on this next part of the ladder, at least getting their input, right? So we are talking about creating more opportunities for youth voice to happen. Getting input, that's one way to get youth input, right? To get their voice. Surveys, asking them, focus groups, those are ways to get their input. Above that, we have choice, giving them choices. Do we ask them, you know, what are they going to do today? Do we give them an option of choosing things? And then here at the tippy top, shared leadership, giving them a seat at the table. Those are the youth councils, youth advisory boards, you know, allowing them to sit on those, you know, sit in those seats so that they can also have an opportunity to advocate. So these are the different opportunities that exist for us to provide youth, you know, youth voice. Now, how do we support youth voice? Number one, keep increasing the challenge, right? And it's really increasing them to think critically. So increasing the challenge for them. If they were if we gave them youth voice and we asked them, hey, you know, what do you want to do today? Are you going to do this STEM activity? Are you going to do the reading activity? Increase that challenge and say, all right, so you're going to do STEM, you're going to do reading, whatever. All right, within that choice that you chose, like now what I want you to do, I want you to think about, you know, one takeaway, like offer them a reflection opportunity, offer them something that allows them to really think critically about the choice that they're making, because that's what we're doing. We're helping them be able to think about their responsibility in it. Think about the autonomy that they can have in that choice. Really encouraging them to think about how we can, not to make it more difficult, but to offer them more of a challenge, right? And then scaffolding the activity, right? So providing scaffolding means to give a little bit at a time and then to keep adding on top of that. So if we're talking about getting them to shared leadership, maybe you're starting out here with no voice. Then you're saying, hey, you know what? We're gonna at least start by getting some input. How can you create opportunities for input? And literally this whole youth voice ladder is a scaffolding opportunity. We can start by getting their input so we can understand how we can give them great choices. Well, now we're going to give them choices and see how they do with that. All right. And then when we see how they do with that, then we're going to add in some leadership on top of that. Now, remember, I always tell people, when you think about leadership, this is also about teaching. We want to teach our young people how to do these things, how to advocate for themselves in the most appropriate way. LaTanya had mentioned that as well. Like, yeah, I'm not saying open up the floodgates and be like, y'all can do whatever it is y'all want to do. Woo, youth voice. No, What I'm saying is we teach them to say, okay, I really want to hear your voice. I want you to know how to make your voice heard, but here's how it has to look. You can fill out this survey. We're going to give you, an assessment. You can let us know what you're thinking in, the suggestion box, whatever that is, teaching them how to take full advantage of those things. All right, you all, we're going to give you a choice. However, here are the different things that you can choose from. You only have one choice, right? Whatever the boundaries are that you have to create, we have to teach them how to have voice within, those structures and those limits. So Antonio says, support the youth in the work. We're right. We're not doing the work for them. Absolutely. So when we look at, this youth voice at multiple levels, we're thinking about, how we interact with our youth, right? So that's that combating the adultism. And how that could look like is you going back to our ladder here and saying, all right, do I really, did I really give our young people an opportunity to have input about our summer program? Did I give them an opportunity to have input about the field trip, or input about maybe they can't say what activity we're doing, but maybe they can say, do you want to use crayons or color pencils, right? The thing is, it's up to us to really be creative in how we can offer our young people input, right? Like, how can we create opportunities for them to give input? So I want to take a pause really quickly and switch over to we're gonna do a little activity. I am going to share a Google link with you. Anyone with the link can edit. Here we go. All right. And I want you all to pop into this little Google sheet. There it is right there. And I want you all to talk about what youth voice looks like in your program, or can look like in your program in these different areas. So we have shared leadership, we have choice, and we have input. And I want you to just type some examples of what youth voice can look like in those areas in your program. And I'm going to share my screen while we do that. So I'm going to give you all about 7 minutes to do this. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to turn my timer on. I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to do this. And I just want you all to go ahead and type in your program, how does this look? And then we're going to review. All right. Timer is on. All right, so we still have a few minutes left, but I think folks are done. Cool. All right, so let's review about what people talked about youth voice can look like at these different levels. All right, so when we think about, we'll start here at input. All right, so looking at input. What does that look like in some of these, some people's programs? People said surveys. Awesome. Oh, planning our community meal. I love that. Someone says their youth board. All right. Someone else says informal assessments. I love that. Awesome. Planning the community meal. I really, really love that. All right, youth choice. What does that look like? It says choose participation. Yep. And programs and activity. Absolutely. Oh, some of the recipes we make, there's a choice about ingredients. That's really good. That's a good creative one. Someone says a choice about standards. Okay. Awesome. And then shared leadership. What does that look like? Yes, co-lead program and activities. Lead some of the short activities. Peer mentoring. Absolutely. Peer educators. Love this. These are all great examples when we think about shared leadership. Giving them an opportunity to lead some aspect of it. Yes, leading some of the activities. I don't know if any of you have ever participated in the program quality assessment tool, but in the PQA tool, that's actually one of the areas that we look at and we assess. Did youth have an opportunity to lead an activity? Did they have an opportunity to mentor one of their peers? So you either get scored in a 1, a 3, or a 5 in that area. And if you're providing those opportunities, boom, you are absolutely getting a 5. So that's just a little tidbit. If you all do utilize the PQA, we actually assess in the area of leadership. What does that look like? And sometimes you all hit the nail right on the head. That can simply look like leading, the activity. And I mean like them leading it, them telling everyone the instructions, them going over how to play, them, selecting the game. All of that's a part of leadership. So I love that these you all are implementing these aspects into your program. All right, so we're looking at this freedom continuum here, right? So we have right here in the center this happy face, right? Meaningful choices within a supportive structure. Again, we know that there has to be some sort of boundary, some sort of structure. So we know that those have to exist. Our job is to try to create opportunities for choice to happen within the structure, within, the limitations that we need to offer. So that's really the sweet spot. Now, what's going to happen over here? You see this emoji, the yawning face, the face. You don't see the interest there. If they don't get enough freedom of choice, they may not be interested. That can look like a decrease in attendance. That can look like a decrease in active engagement and real participation, because maybe we're not offering them enough freedom. Maybe we're not giving them enough choice, put it like that. I'm not saying open up the floodgates, but it could simply be because we're not giving them choices within things that interest them. Over here, you have the sad face, right? Sometimes we see a lot of frustration because it could be too much freedom. I don't know if you all have ever been in a situation where it's like, okay, like I gave too much free reign. And so I'll give an example about choice. Now, for me, I love giving our young people choice. However, you only get at maximum 3 choices for me, because I have seen if it's too much, and I see this even in adults, if it's too much choice, people get frustrated because then they don't know how to make a decision. Then it's too much. It's overwhelmed. They feel like they have to do everything. And people get stuck. They get stagnant in it. So it can create a lot of behavioral issues. It can create a lot of, high energy, too much frustration, what have you. But I like to offer at maximum, you're getting 3 choices. My good sweet spot is 2 choice. It's either, you can do this or you can do that. You get to choose. So I like to offer, minimum choices. Antonio said, too many choices can be frustrated. Example, Cheesecake Factory menu. You are so right. This came up in another training I was doing where someone mentioned Cheesecake Factory. So that's hilarious because they were just like, cheesecake, it's too many things. It's just like you can choose from seafood, you can choose pizza, you can choose burgers, you can choose, pasta, you can choose all the things. And it can become overwhelming. So too much freedom can be really frustrating, and then we can start to see a lot of behaviors. It's just like, because they're trying to do everything. They don't know where to go. So we want to be in this sweet spot. We want to give choices, but we want to give them within the structure, right? The supportive structure. And I love how at the beginning, I think, Kenya, you said it, working with them to talk about the rules. Like, yeah, we have to establish some type of, I don't like to call them rules. I like to call them agreements. So we have to establish agreements or rules or whatever, because we all need to know what are the boundaries we have to create. So within the boundaries, within the rules that have been created, how can we offer them choice? I love someone talked about the ingredients. Yeah, like if you can choose which ingredient, do you want paprika or do you want, seasoning salt, or do you want lemon pepper? Like that's a choice. They get to choose. Now, them your only choices maybe, but you get to choose. There's still some autonomy in that. You can say, Siobhan, do you want the blue door or do you want the red door? Well, thank you. I get to choose instead of you telling me which door I have to go to. Maybe now I get to choose red or blue. Because then, I love to put this, because then guess what? The consequences on me. If I chose the red door and there's somebody behind the red door waiting to, slap me in the face, well, you know what? That's me. I chose that door instead of you making me walk through, the red door. So we want to make sure that we're providing some type of freedom, but we know too much freedom can cause chaos. Not enough freedom can cause lack of interest. So if you all feel like maybe you've seen a decrease in attendance, or, you've seen a decrease in engagement, I would encourage you to ask yourself, and just assess your program. Hey, like, I wonder if we're not offering options that are really interesting to our young people. So we're going to skip that one. All right. So we're talking about in your program as we're going to round this out and wrap this up. Some of you all talked about surveys and assessments and things like that. So get youth feedback forms, right? That's a really great way to get input, asking them either at the end of the session or at the end of the program, asking them for their feedback. Just like at the end of every training that I've participated in, they give you a feedback form, right? Like an evaluation form to say, hey, how did you feel about this training that you participated in? Now, some people don't fill the form out, doesn't matter. It was an opportunity for feedback. Because sometimes people get stuck on, well, nobody's filling it out. Doesn't matter, the opportunity is there. So this is really about providing opportunities, regardless if you feel like your youth are fully participating in them or not, and if you find that maybe they're not interested in like exit surveys or, feedback forms or whatever, what's a different opportunity we can provide for feedback? I always like to do, when I do some of my other trainings, I like to do a check-in. The same way I do a check-in at the beginning, I'll say, all right, give me a 1, a 3, or a 5, how you're feeling. I'll do a check-in at the end and say, okay, on a scale of 1, 1 through 5, 1, 3, or 5, how did you feel about this session? And there are so many different ways you could do. Like when we were in person, I would create, lines on the floor, and they would go and stand in one of those spaces. Or I would put pieces of paper up and they would go and stand around the room. And that's still feedback. So you can make it fun, right? Another great tool is if you do an organizational inventory. And that's really about the leadership, the shared leadership. Remember the Google survey we did at the beginning where we were just like, hey, when you were a youth, did you feel like you were tokenized? Did you feel like you got an opportunity to give feedback? Did you feel like you had an opportunity to, have some type of leadership? You can take that and do an organizational inventory for your own organization and say, hey, are we giving our young people an opportunity for their voice to be heard? are we teaching our young people how to be leaders, or do we just throw them in leadership positions, right? Because that's also a great opportunity to learn, to say, okay, we want to create more leadership opportunities. We want to do the shared leadership, but we want to do it the right way. Kind of like Latanya said, like, hey, we got to teach them. I know you may not be learning this other places, so let's take an opportunity for me to teach you how to be a leader in this capacity. That's that could be an activity. That could be some type of course or a class where we're teaching them how to do those. Even Latanya said, hey, she did the truck. Now she's teaching our young people how to be business owners. You're teaching them how to be executives. You're teaching them how to take responsibility and be the leader of a task. Go ahead, Kenya.
I'm just sitting here thinking, and I can't help because I know the era that I was raised in, right? And a lot of things that you're saying, I'm really, really deeply reflecting on about that I have a voice, that I have an option to be engaged. And I'm thinking from the era that I was raised in and bringing it on up even till today, specifically with how much the generations have changed, and reflecting also on what Latanya said. And I think a lot that what we're dealing with is because the youth don't have anything to do. So when you're working inside these schools, we're taking on extra, it is more challenging. And she was like a system, and which is true, but there is no support even after school, because a lot of the children that could benefit from after school programs the most suffer some type of hardship to even be engaged to better themselves. And I say that specifically with myself because the era that I came in, my first form of what basically taught me leadership was being a Girl Scout. And I participated and I was on some dance team, but even in my community center, which I praise to this day, it did help save my life, but it still wasn't even that many programs offered then. Now, my daughter did benefit for some programs within a community center, but they took it away. And I'm grateful that she was, and I know, and I could see where that impacted her life and where she benefited from that successfully. But that's the end of an era also. We're bringing back, and it was offers that we took away what worked due to funding, but now it's being brought back, and you can see that when that was taken away, this is what happened. This is the aftermath. Even on up to the parents, because you can't leave them out either, but also having to offer some type of assistance to help them even keep their children engaged for their greater need. So in order to assist and even get them in the mindset to be of leadership, it does make people such like Latanya, who's been, you know what I'm saying? I'm just reflecting on a lot of this she said. It makes your job, the hardship, the barrier, just that much more work that has to be put into it, and having to have self-care, and knowing what to take back, because I can honestly sit here and honestly say I've been on self-care for like 3.5 years. I take time out for myself. It's not a overnight, okay, I'm gonna do this for 2 weeks and I'm gonna be better. No, it does not look like that if you're completely honest with yourself. Honestly, and that's why I can sit here and say I've been on it for 3.5 years and I'm still getting better in adjusting mindsets and frames because of things that's going on. Like I mentioned previously, just it's the small thing that triggers. I'm dealing with children with kids with gun violence, and anytime just that right there, and I'm grateful that happened in the way that we needed it to go, But it's just at those type of moments, just I freeze because it's so uncertain. You never know. And unfortunately, I have a lot of friends that have, including myself, that have had those type of incidences. So when I get a moment to breathe and think it's just all right in my world, I take full advantage of that. But knowing the job that we have to do, the need, uh, to even insert in the kids' man. And that's the name of my organization. You know, I'm trying to break the chain. I'm trying to break the cycle. Um, Cycle breakers breaking chains. If we can get the children to acknowledge what hasn't been working, what's normal, and that's normal for them. But if they want to change that, giving them the option to go a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that insightful reflection, right? You know, you're saying, hey, as I'm thinking about my own experiences, I agree with you. I always think about like, man, these kids really don't have anything that they can do anymore because funding, so,
They don't.
funding has snatched away so much. We used to go to malls. Malls don't even exist anymore. You used to have
Oh
fun.
no, you gotta have here in Louisville, you gotta have a parent
Up here, right? Exactly.
to go
Yeah,
in the mall because the kids are taught it's
yeah.
torn up the malls. They have brought
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
much negativity to the
Yeah.
mall that they have to be.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. It's always something.
They
And
have
so
to be courted.
I agree with
They
you.
will literally put them out if they're not escorted. They have to put them out. They will literally ask them to leave. Like
And I
so
agree
much
with you
change
all.
here in Louisville, Kentucky, and unfortunately, it had to.
Yeah.
Because we are a lot of the things we it starts with us and it's gonna end with us. We have caused a lot of issues here. Our youth are so, which is goes
Lost.
back to everything yes, everything that we're speaking on today.
It's a lot. Our kids are, and
Yeah,
that's why I said a lot of what the system, the institution is outdated, right? It doesn't really work, I feel like, for what our young people are needing. So I love the fact that we've had this conversation and you all have given some beautiful insight. You all have given me some things to think about. I hope that you've given yourselves some things to think about here. I just put up on the screen just a quick reflection. Let us know how you're feeling about Youth Voice. Are you a 1, a 3, or a 5? Are you a 1 if you're saying, like, I'm not really ready to implement this in programming? You're a 3 if you're saying, I get it. I still have some more questions. I want to spend a little bit more time thinking about this before I implement. You're a 5 if you're like, yep, I feel ready and prepared to go. And I want to implement Youth Voice at my site. If it hasn't been implemented, if it has been implemented, I'm going to step it up a notch even more. So are you a 1, a 3, or a 5? Go ahead and type that into the chat there. I see some 5s coming in. I love that. I also will say, if you find that you want more information about Youth Voice, I would wholeheartedly, there is a one of the work, usually when we do this, it comes with this workbook here, Youth Voice, and it has all of these additional resources in there. But if you go to the Weichert Center, which is the Center for Youth Program Quality, if you go to, it is forumfyi.com. I believe they have so much information on Youth Voice. The Weichert Center is there. Let me see, Forum FYI. It might be .org. Everybody, I think it might be .org. I believe that's it, but that's the forum for you.
Can you put that in the chat? I'm sorry.
I did. Yep. There. Thank you, Antonio. It is.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. We just put it up in there. So yeah, it has so many great resources though. I mean, like studies, research, suggestions. They have webinars. So that's a really great tool to use if you want to explore this more and really, kind of maybe see what the research is saying or see what's trending. So the Weichert Center is always kind of like ahead of the game when it comes to this information. So there's that tool there. I know Antonio put the survey into the chat for this course as well. Let them know what you thought about this workshop. Woo! This was a really great workshop. I appreciate you all for your attention, your level of participation. I love the discussion back and forth. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to let me know. My contact information is there. Feel free to reach out to me at sn.sin@gmail.com at any time. I am going to email this presentation to Antonio as soon as we're done, and he can send it out to you all to have, so that you have those tools and resources there. That is it for me. I am handing it back over to Antonio. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Shalom.
Thank you.
It has been truly insightful, and definitely, love the discussion and the discourse that happens, and just the things that organically emerge, from all these great minds being in the room. So thank you all for participating. And once again, the survey is in the chat, so please fill that out and let us know what you thought about this, and how we can improve, and what you all expect to see or want to see later. And I will not prolong the time. Again, we have one more youth methods training for this program year that'll be in May, and I think it is cooperative learning. So I will send that invitation out to you all coming soon. And we also have another training that's centered around marketing for your organization on April 21st. Okay, so I sent that out. So be sure to sign up for that if you are interested.
Is that the Canva training?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay.
That's it.
Antonio, you have any, before you hang up, I'm sorry, you have any insight on any grants that we could be applying for coming up?
Gotcha. In regards to Metro United Way, our fiscal year will be ending, it ends in April. So that cycle won't start again until I believe in May. So things will start coming out towards the summertime, whenever we start doing that again.
Okay, I'm just trying to get ahead of it.
And also, I believe the James Graham Brown Foundation has some opportunities that's available right now as well. So check them out too. All righty. All right. So that is.
I'm sorry. I have a quick question. Lasagna, for your ice cream truck, is that a part of? Is that a part of a nonprofit foundation, or is that a part of, like, is it a business?
So I built it for the sole purpose of fundraising for my nonprofit.
Okay.
I've had to, because I'm reselling, I've had to set it up as a business, but everything I take in goes to my my math program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Antonio, what I'll do is I am going to.
But I'm sorry, let me say this. The Scoops and Scholars is actually a program under my math academy. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's like a workforce development training. I'm trying to team up with Summer Works, which is a program here in Louisville where they got teens that are looking for jobs. I'm trying to get it once everything is established, because I have a setup. I have the truck, and I have a setup that's going to be at our waterfront park. I got a trailer that's going to be there, and I'll have the shop. So it's a full STEAM program, but with an opportunity for the young people to like get a stipend or whatever. If I can do it through Summer Works, then they can actually get paid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have programs like that too here for summer youth employment for in our area too. What I'm going to do, Antonio, I'm going to send you a list of grants. So I'm also a grants specialist. I manage, I do all of those things in the grant world. I'm going to send you that. And some of them are like for businesses, some of them are for nonprofit, but it could be something to kind of get you started as you are in the world looking for more funding opportunities. So it's a long list of grants that are available, and that you can look through and see if anything is applicable to you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And
I would also check grants.gov if you haven't. There's a lot of funding that has become available, just from all of the like COVID, whatever, but there is a lot of funding available for programming. And I think specifically like what you're doing and creating those opportunities, there's definitely some funding out there. So check out grants.gov.
Yeah, and I deal in mathematics, which is kind of unusual for African Americans, I've been told.
It's a lot of funding out there. I would definitely say just check that out. But I will send you a list, Antonio, of some grant opportunities that you can share.
Okay.
You can share with your networks. So I just wanted to share that. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. No,
My bad.
That's awesome. No, those are awesome questions. And that's what we're here for. So yeah, are there any other questions before I close this out officially?
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Always. Thank you for joining us, Kenya. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. It has been a pleasure. And we will meet again next month. Thank you so much. Look forward to you all. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.